Hi, I'm Victoria Seed, and today in the session, this 10 at 11 session, it's dedicated to Young Carers Action Day, which is a day that happened on Wednesday. And this is all about young carers and taking action and raising awareness about them. So, the session today is how to support young carers living with family addiction. So, first of all, what is a young carer? A young carer, by definition, and this definition's from carers.org, so I'm going to read it out. It's somebody aged 25 and under who cares for a friend or family member who, due to an illness, disability, mental health problem, or addiction, cannot cope without their support. Older young carers are also known as young adult carers, and they may have different support needs to younger carers. Okay, so if you don't know, I've worked in my fields of work for well, since 2005 as a drug and alcohol practitioner. And before that, I worked in prisons and I was studying social ethics, and I've worked with children and young people for a long time. So, over the years, particularly when I went into working with families affected by parental substance use, I've seen a lot of young carers who are caring emotionally, practically for somebody else, whether it is a parent, carer, or sibling, or another family member. So, that is who we are talking about today. And I've worked with children very, very young who are doing this. In fact, one of my first clients doing family work with addiction consisted of a 5-year-old who was caring for two younger siblings as a result of mum's amphetamine use. So this does happen. It is happening around us. And if it doesn't apply to you, just think about anyone else around you. It could be a neighbour, friend, or family member where there's a child in that family that might be taking on additional responsibilities as a result of those things. So, what I'm going to talk to you about is just 6 points really around this topic. So, number one, um, the best thing to do. So, so my clients are women who are living with somebody else's addiction. So, if we think about children within that household and use the example of a partner, so a child's father or carer or step parent who is using a substance. So I'll focus on that today just to keep it simple, but remember it can apply to anyone within a family. We need to acknowledge the impact on the child of living with family addiction because ultimately, and I'm hearing it a lot recently in my group and in my work with my clients, the children don't know, they're not aware of what's going on, and things like that, or they are aware, but possibly they haven't got any support. And I always say, just try and ask them how they are, ask them if anything's worrying them, ask them what makes them happy, because it will open up a conversation. There are sites like NACOA who I talk about all the time who have guidance for parents, carers, and young people in order for them to cope with somebody else's alcohol use. And it's aimed at parents, but using alcohol, but it works for other things as well, like drugs. So head over there and have a look. What we've got to do is make sure we are validating that child's feelings. Let school know what is going on. I know that can feel scary. I know it can feel like they might take your child off you, but let me assure you and reassure you that that will only happen if there is a significant risk of harm and parents and caring are not complying and protecting that child, which most of my clients do that. Okay. In fact, all my clients have done that since I've done my private work. So acknowledge the impact on the child living with family addiction. Number two, look out for the child's caring responsibility. So is the person or are you as a non-drinking or drug using parent expecting more of that child than as is age appropriate? So again, it could be emotional, it could be practical, it could be physically caring for another person and not just the person who is using drugs and alcohol. It could be that the impact of the family being focused around that means that they're taking on additional responsibility. So that type of thing is what we want to be considering here. Number three, encourage open communication about their experiences and feelings. So again, it goes back to point one, acknowledging that impact. So we want the children to have a voice. If they internalize this stuff, if they are missing out on experiences with friends or with school or education or learning or work, if they're a young adult, then we need to be talking to them about it. And if you can't do that on your own, there are services that can advise you and support with that. If you've got a child who is under 18 who is dealing with this, it's really important, to head over to school and or somebody and say, listen, y- this is going on at home. Um, I really want to mitigate the risks of this so it doesn't affect them into their adulthood. So, could we look at potentially an early help assessment to get some support networks in? And that means once that child, uh, is taking on care and responsibilities, or even just living with somebody else's substance use, a professional service, a universal service at school are aware of that. Um, and, schools deal with this all the time. They're not going to overreact. And the early help assessment means that you can tell your story. Your child can tell the story. You can say they know or they don't know. Should respect that and they will respect that. And then you've got the narrative there. If anything escalates, you've got that baseline. If anything reduces and the risk reduces, anything changes, let them know. And it means that your child has got somebody else to speak to other than you. Okay, so we need the open and honest communication, and that's hard when you are trying to keep secrets because of stigma and shame. But trust me, it doesn't do your children any good or children in the family any good. And we've got to try and prioritize their needs wherever possible. Number four, seek support and be open and honest with professionals. So, again, just what I've already said, really, it is about being open and honest. Yes, your loved one who is using substances may not be ready to get help, but for your children, we've almost got to sidestep, get our way around that and be like, well, we need help actually. You can get help from me. There are free services, there are charitable organizations. You can download my free download that lets you know about those organizations that can help. So be open and honest with professionals as, somebody that isn't the person using substances potentially. Or if you are that person using substances, you can still help your children by getting them this additional support in place. Okay, and there are private services as well, so don't forget that. Number five, understand your rights and your child's rights and access to carers assessments. So if you, as an adult, or your child as a child is caring, there are carers assessments that you can access through the local authority, and they will assess any needs, the appropriateness and level of caring responsibility, and put help and provisions in place. There are young carers services in every locality. The quality of them depends on the funding offered, and it is a bit of a postcode lottery, but they are available. So your young people can be liaising with and spending time with other young carers and feeling like they're not on their own. And these services are incredible. So, fight for your rights for that. Because you never know, you could be able to access some support for yourself and for your children as well. Number six, then, is focus on the needs of the child or young person above and beyond the needs of your loved one. So, again, just going back to that thing, we have a paramountcy principle in children's services where, in law, legally, we'll look at the child's needs being paramount and what is best for them. And I urge all of my clients and people in my community to think about, okay, we are focused over here because we are constantly in toxic stress living with this situation. However, we cannot forget where the children are at. And unfortunately, living with somebody else's addiction, mental health, domestic abuse, all of these things will have an impact on children. So, yeah, I am quite direct about this stuff, but I won't apologize for that because I have done this work. It is a specialism of mine. So if you need help around this, don't be scared. I know it can feel scary. But usually when my clients have this external help in place, um, it just makes life better. And in fact, it can be a motivator as well for your loved one to make a change. So if you need help, please get in touch. I will drop my links in. They will be in the description for this live. Have a look. Feel free to book in with me for a friendly chat, and I